Good day, everyone. Our discussion for today would be about global demography to be presented by our team, Group 2. Let me introduce to you our flow of discussion for today and the assigned members. The introduction would be tackled by Ms. Beloy. The perils of overpopulation would be tackled by Ms. Bellarmino, Ms. Calvadores, and Ms. Cruz. It's the economies, not the babies, would be tackled by Ms. Beloy and Ms. Cantada. Women and reproductive rights would be tackled by Mr. Candelaria and Ms. Paras. The feminist perspective would be tackled by Ms. Aureliano and Ms. Kailing. And lastly, the population growth and food security would be tackled by Ms. Belandres and Ms. Borromeo. Now let's proceed with our quick introduction with the definition of global demography from National Geographic. Global demography is the statistical study of human populations, meaning it examines the size, structure, and movement of the population. So how do we measure this huge size of people? This is measured through methods from history, economics, and other fields. This information would be useful for the government and private businesses in order for them to fully analyze and predict social, cultural, and economic trends related to population. So why do we need to study global demography if there are other professionals who are assigned in examining the size of population? The study of demography is an immense importance to an economy, meaning it helps us to know how the growth of the economy is keeping pace with the growth of the population. And in order for us to know this, we are able to realize that population is increasing at a faster rate with the pace of development of economy might slow down. So we need to be mindful of the risk of overpopulation. Being said about the risk of overpopulation, now let's proceed with our next reporter, Ms. Bellarmino.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Giselle B. Blarmino. My topic for today is all about the perils of overpopulation and the effects of overpopulation. Ating pag-uusapan ang tungkol sa panganib ng pagtaas ng populasyon. Pero bago ako magpatuloy, base sa kasalukuyang datos ng kabuang populasyon ng ating mundo, ay umaabot ng mahigit 7.9 billion. Talakayin natin ang top 20 largest countries by population. Nangunguna na dyan ang China, sinundan ng India, USA, Indonesia, Pakistan, Brazil, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Russia, Mexico, Japan, Ethiopia, Philippines, Egypt, Vietnam, DR Congo, Turkey, Germany, Iran, and Thailand. Nasa pang-13 pwesto ang Pilipinas. The perils of overpopulation. Kapag napapag-usapan ang relationship between population and economic growth, hanggang ngayon ay pinagdedebatihan pa rin ito. Dahil may mga nagsasabing stable naman ang economic growth, pero nai-sustain pa rin yung kinakailangan ng bawat tao ng isang bansa. Ngunit may mga iba naman na nagsasabing mas mataas pa rin ang populasyon ng tao kaysa sa laki ng ekonomiya, kaya nagkukulang ang supply at demand. Pero ano nga ba ang overpopulation? Overpopulation, it refers to a population which exceed the sustainable size within a particular environment or habitat. May nabanggit din akong population and economic growth. Population, the total or whole number of people or individuals occupying an area in a country or a region. And economic growth, an increase in the amount of goods and services produced per head of the population over a period of time. Next, the effects of overpopulation. Batay sa impormasyon na nakalap, maraming dahilan ng sobrang pagtaas ng populasyon. Una, ang pagtaas ng birth rate at pagbaba ng death rate. Ang birth rate ay nadadagdagan at ang death rate ay nababawasan dahil sa Industrial Revolution noong ika-18 na siglo. Sa panahon ng Industrial Revolution, nadiskubre ng mga tao ang marami pang paraan upang makaligtas na nagdudulot ng pagtaas ng birth rate at pagbaba ng death rate. Pangalawa, ang kalusugan. Ang sobrang populasyon ng bansa ay nagkakaroon ng maraming issue sa kalusugan. Dahil sa pagtaas ng bilang ng mga tao sa mga lugar na pinaninirahan, may mga pagkakataon talaga na kumakalat ang mga impeksyon o sakit at ito'y lumalala at maraming naapektuhan. Isa sa mga kaso ng ating nararanasan tulad ng pagkakaroon ng viral and bacterial infections na kilala natin ngayon na COVID-19 at marami pang iba. Ang pagtaas ng higit pang populasyon ay nakakaapekto. Ang bilang ng mga healthcare center, mga ospital, mga manggagawa ay hindi na sapat para mabigyan ng serbisyong pangkalusugan ang mga nangangailangan. Pangatlo, ang agwat sa pagitan ng mayaman at mahirap. Siyempre, nais din ng mahirap na maging mayaman. Ang pag-iisip o mentalidad ng mahihirap ay kung mas maraming mga bata ang meron sila, mas maraming pagkakataon o tsansa na isa sa kanilang mga anak ay mag-angat sa kanila sa kahirapan. Sa sitwasyong ganyan ay may mga ibang tao na walang sapat na kaalaman tungkol o pagdating sa family planning. Pang-apat, walang trabaho. Ang trabaho ay isang opsyon para sa isang tao na magtrabaho at kumita. Ngunit ang bilang ng mga posisyon ay palaging hindi naaayon at limitado sa anumang negosyo. Kaya mahirap matugunan ang lahat na magkaroon ng trabaho. Panghuli, mataas na presyo ng mga pangangailangan. Dahil nga marami ng tao sa buong mundo, ang mga pangangailangan ng bawat tao ay patuloy ding tataas. Kung tataas ang pangangailangan ng tao, ang mga presyo ng ating pangangailangan ay tataas rin. Kaya ang mga tao hindi na kayang bilhin ang kanilang mga gusto at pangangailangan. At ito'y maaaring hindi na sapat sa kanila o para sa kanilang pamilya. 5 lamang po yan na aking nabanggit na nagiging epekto sa sobrang pagtaas ng populasyon sa ating bansa na ating nararanasan. That's all of my report. Thank you po. Let's move on to our next reporter, Ms. Calvadores.
So yun, overpopulation ay humanitarian crisis. Why overpopulation is a humanitarian crisis? So bakit nga ba tinatawag na humanitarian crisis ang overpopulation? So based dito sa statement, meron dito tatlo. Pag dumadami ang populasyon ng mga tao, may tatlo siyang nasasagasaan or may tatlong reason kung bakit, which is the production, the consumption, and destruction. Kaya siya nagiging humanitarian crisis. When it comes kasi sa consumption, tsaka sa production, pag mas maraming tao, mas maraming demand na kailangang i-produce na kailangan i-sustain ng mga businesses. So, kailangan nila mag-product ng maraming mga products para sa mga taong nagkukonsumo ng produkto nila. And nagkakos yung mga businesses na yon pag dumadaming production nila, nakapag-cause sila ng destruction of nature. For example dito is sa pagdami ng mga kabataan o sa pagdami ng mga estudyante, ng mga nag-aaral. Taon-taon, marami ang mga nag-aaral ng mga estudyante. Mas dumadami ang populasyon ng mga nag-aaral na estudyante. At dahil doon, mas malaki ang demand when it comes sa mga papel, sa mga libro. And kailangan ng mga businesses na masustain yung pangangailangan ng mga estudyante na yon. So ang kailangan nila is magpuputol sila ng mga puno just to make mga papers para sa mga tao na para sa mga kabataan na nag-aaral. And doon nasisira yung nature natin. Isa natin dito na nabanggit is the destroying the soil quality. Ang Pilipinas, kilala tayo sa agricultural. Kilala ang Pilipinas sa mga pananim. Nag-export tayo ng mga plants na galing dito sa Pilipinas, kagaya ng rice. Nag-export tayo ng rice sa iba't ibang bansa. And other foods na sakop ng agricultural. And dahil doon, nagiging humanitarian crisis siya kasi as time goes by, yung mga pinapaniman ng mga tao, yung mga pinananiman ng mga katulad ng mga magsasaka, napapalitan na siya ng mga subdivisions, napapalitan na siya ng mga establishments na dati open area, na dati puro puno and open area nga. So, next naman is yung crisis made by the overpopulation. Ito yung mga crisis na nababuo ng overpopulation. First, yung pollution. Hindi lang naman ito tumutukoy sa air pollution, kundi tumutukoy din ito sa water pollution and noise pollution. Pag dumadami kasi ang populasyon ng tao, mas umiingay. Siyempre, 'di ba, 'di ba nasa loob tayo ng isang room tas sobrang daming tao tas sabay-sabay na nagsasalita, nararamdaman natin yung init sa loob nun. And 'pag din nagkakaroon ng overpopulation, walang masyadong tao, hindi naman lahat ng tao is kayang magkaroon ng shelter. Yung iba naninirahan sila sa mga ilog, yung mga informal settlers, din nagkakaroon ng water pollution kasi yung mga waste nila is doon na lang nila tinatapon sa mga ilog. Then the governance crisis. Sa governance crisis, syempre may pondo na binibigay ang gobyerno sa iba't ibang municipalities, sa iba't ibang cities. And pag dumadami ang tao, dapat mas maraming pondo din ang ibigay ng gobyerno. Which is, hindi naman ganun kadali. Kasi first of all, ang pera na ginagamit ng gobyerno is nanggagaling lang din naman sa mga taxes and other payments na ginagawa ng mga tao. The next is the poverty. Pag nagkaroon ng governance crisis and yung pang-apat na unemployment, nagkakaroon ng poverty. Kasi dahil nga, sige, ipapasok na rin natin yung pang-apat. Nagkakaroon kasi na unemployment pag mas maraming tao kasi mas maliit lang yung number ng businesses na kaya mag-provide ng mga jobs para sa mga tao. And ang ending nun, maraming tao ang nawawalan ng trabaho and hindi lahat ng tao napoprovide ng trabaho. And dahil doon, nagiging unemployed sila is nagkaka-cause din yan ng poverty o taghirap. Kasi yun nga, hindi naman sustainable yung income na meron sila. So, yun, move on na tayo sa next reporter, si Miss Janela.
Hello, good morning. So curtailing overpopulation. Right now, there are 7.594 billion people on planet Earth. The chances are high that there are even more now while you are reading this. As new people are born all around the globe, experts expect that if something doesn't change, we could see 9.7 billion people by 2050 and 11 billion by 2100s. While birth and growth might sound like a positive thing on paper, there is an upper limit. So population are expanding, but the planet is not. We're swiftly approaching the point of overpopulation. So the government is making a way on how to curtailing overpopulation. So developed nations, therefore, seem to be morally obligated to try to curtail overpopulation in developing nations. But in doing so, they must be careful not only are the concerns about imperialism, colonialism, and destruction of native culture, but they also choose a means of population control that is both effectual and moral. And remember, that's not always easy. So we all know that the population is growing and that it will reach a critical tipping point in the next century. So we need to take steps now to steady our population growth so it doesn't become unsustainable. We're not sure exactly how many people the planet can support, but experts believe it's somewhere in the vicinity of 10 billion. We're not there yet, but we're quickly moving in that direction. If we don't take steps to curtail our currently unchecked population growth, we start running out of everything we need to stay alive. So, according to Hardin, there are two approaches, coercive and passive. So, coercive methods are defined as methods that force the agent to decrease the number of children. Examples included are China's one-child policy, while passive methods are defined as methods that allow the agent to choose the number of offspring but still limit population growth. Examples include are family planning, contraceptives, and voluntary abortion. And specifically, Hardin suggests that if you do not force people to limit their number of offspring, there will always be a percentage of the population that does not acquiesce. So over time, the population will continue to grow as those who do not acquiesce to the limitation reproduce. So who in turn will be less likely to limit their own number of offspring. The primary logic behind this conclusion is that um, the recipients of this aid are still making fully voluntary decisions to use the mechanism at hand. Therefore, each individual can still exercise procreative autonomy and can still secure the basic human needs that would have been provided by a large family. Even with the pressure to use mechanisms such as contraception, the individual will not use the mechanism unless he or she sees a substantial benefit and does not have to give up any basic human needs. So, therefore, the individual's conscience is a stoppage a stopgap measure to ensure that basic human needs are not being infringed upon. So furthermore, the system will not ultimately work until the government at play compensates the citizens. So there will be a natural pull towards a point of agreement between the government and the citizens. So aside from controlling population growth, a passive population control system would provide substantial additional benefits. So a decrease in sexually transmitted diseases through the use of contraceptives and a reduction in domestic violence due to family planning and sexual education are just two examples of these benefits. I would therefore claim that incentivized passive population control produce the greatest benefit at the least social cost and should thus be implemented. That's all po. Thank you. So let's move forward to the next reporter.
Now let's proceed with our next topic, which is the economy, not the babies. Have you ever questioned yourself, is the world getting overpopulated? If so, should the government intervene with this overpopulation? If you said yes, then you agree with Thomas Robert Malthus, which is an 18th century British philosopher and economist and one of the key people from the creation of supply and demand. However, in 1798, he proposed a very interesting theory in his book called An Essay on the Principle of Population. So ano nga ba tong theory na to? It's what we call the Malthusian theory of population na sinasabi na population would exceed our carrying capacity. Meaning, pag nag-overpopulated yung mundo natin, it will lead to food shortages. Pag nagkaroon ng food shortages, we have famine, war, malnutrition, and other consequences. So, paano na-formulate to ni Malthus? He concluded the food supply progressed by arithmetic rate, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, while the population increased by geometric rate, which is 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So, meaning, the food supply is increasing in a constant rate pero mabagal, while the population is increasing in a rapid rate. Mabilis siya kaysa doon sa food supply. In order for us to get this further, let's take a look at this graphical representation in which in the x-axis we have the time and in the y-axis we have the quantity. As we can see, yung production of food, straight line siya. Nag-i-increase pero straight line. Well, yung population is also increasing pero ka-curve. Pa-curve siya. Pero pag nag-meet tong dalawang line to, ito, that's what we call the Malthusian catastrophe, kung saan ma-encounter na natin yung mga consequences. At dito makikita natin yung huge gap between population and production of food. So ano yung pinopropose ni Malthus na preventive measure para sa Malthusian catastrophe? That's what we call the control of population. There is two checks. First is the preventive check, which is focusing on the family planning and late marriages. And second, we have the positive check, which is the event that shortens human life expectancy. This is an external factor, commonly yung war, plague, and famine. So, ibig sabihin, mas mapo-force yung population na mag-decline kasi external factor to sa mga tao. At pag nabawasan yung or madaming namatay dito sa positive check, ibig sabihin, mababalanse ulit at papantay na yung population sa food supply. Nowadays, we are hearing the idea na contraception is the preventive and effective method for the overpopulation. That's what we call the neo-Malthusianism. And we have an author here. Her name is Betsy Hartman. She is the one who disagrees with the idea of neo-Malthusianism because she suggests na in order for us to not encounter the idea of overpopulation is we have to improve the living standards of people and the position of women. Also, improving the quality of health and family planning services. Bakit sinasuggest ni Betsy Hartman na mas effective tong factors na to kaysa sa neo-Malthusianism? Kasi pag in-improve natin yung living standards natin, it will also increase public service. And by that, the people will be able to earn wealth and the idea of comfort. Because pag naging mas capable yung family or yung parents na ibigay yung necessity ng anak nila, then mababawasan yung consequence na mag-decline yung economic growth natin. So, it will lessen the possibility of malnutrition kasi mas capable yung families. So next, why do we need to improve the position of women? This focuses more on the idea na promoting the rights and protecting the women against the abusers. Now, so next we have the last factor, which is improving the quality of health and family planning services. Because by this, people will be able to be much knowledgeable about the consequences of entering the marriages without the idea of financial instability. However, this is not the only one criticizing the Malthusian theory and neo-Malthusianism. We also have the Green Revolution. Speaking of Green Revolution, now let's proceed with our next reporter, Miss Cantada.
Now I am going to discuss the prevention of Malthusian theory, which is the Green Revolution. Norman Borlaug, an American scientist interested in agriculture, conducted research in Mexico in 1940s and developed new disease-resistant high-yield varieties of wheat. So Dr. Borlaug is known as the father of Green Revolution, and he worked as part of the Rockefeller Foundation in Mexico to improve crop yields. So by combining his wheat varieties with new mechanized agricultural technologies, Mexico was able to produce more wheat than what was needed, which resulted in the country being the exporter of wheat in 1960s. And after the success in Mexico, nag-start yung pag-usbong ng Green Revolution and nag-start na din tong mag-spread sa iba pang mga bansa. The Green Revolution created high-yielding varieties of rice and other cereal, and along with the development of new methods of cultivation, increased yields globally but more particularly in the developing world. During this time period, yung mga amount na mga napoproduce na mga pananim ay nag-increase dahil dito nag-umpisa i-introduce yung paggamit ng mga fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides. That's why yung mga threat na binanggit ni Japhanie such as yung famine, malnutrition, and war na maaring mangyari dahil sa mabilis na paglaki ng population ay naiwasan. How did the agricultural revolution affect the human population? A huge increase in agricultural productivity and output during the agricultural revolution contributed to the population growth. The agricultural revolution created a surplus of food, so fewer people died from starvation. So for 2 centuries, since the beginning of the Green Revolution, we developed the ability to grow our own food. Farming increases the yield of food at dahil dito, inalaw nito yung mga tao na magkaroon ng pagkain sa loob ng buong taon. Yung mga alagang hayop ay pinalaki para makapag-produce ng mga meat products at dahil sa agrikultura, yung mga tao ay nagagawa ng makapag-settle down sa isang lugar. So pansinin natin dito yung graph. Itong line graph is yung population growth rate at yung curve na graph is yung world population. And based dito sa graph na nakikita natin, during 1960s, nag-start mag-boom yung population, and for the past centuries, yung Malthus nightmare is, or yung theory na yung mga agriculture products na napoproduce is hindi makakayang sabayan yung pagdami ng population, which is hindi nangyari. Dahil sa theory ni Malthus, hindi niya na-consider ang advancement ng technology na nakatulong para mas mapaunlad ang agriculture. Dahil sa advanced farming, nagbigay daan ito sa mga magsasaka na mas makapagtanim pa ng mas marami pang mga pananim, at dahil dito, yung ibang mga tao ay nagkaroon pa ng iba pang, mas nakapag-focus din sila sa iba pang uri ng trabaho. At makikita rin natin sa graph na unti-unti din bumababa yung population growth rate. Ito ay dahil sa unti-unti nang tumataas ang economy ng mga bansa. The Green Revolution has allowed the addition of billions of people to the population in the past few decades. The Green Revolution has improved agricultural productivity by first, improving crops by selecting portraits that promote productivity. Yung mga farmers, nag-start na silang pumili ng mga maayos na katangian ng kanilang mga pananim. So yung mga desirable traits include crop varieties with shortened growing seasons, increased resistance to diseases and pests, larger seeds and fruits, nutritional content, shelf life, and better adaptation to diverse ecological conditions under which crops were grown. Second, increasing the use of artificial fertilizer and chemical pesticides. Fertilizer are largely what made the Green Revolution possible since may hirapang palakihin at buhayin yung mga pananim if wala nito at kulang at sa paggamit ng mga pesticides ay nakatulong para mabawasan yung pagkalugi ng mga magsasaka dahil pinapatay nito yung mga peste na sumisira sa mga pananim. And about 23 times more fertilizer and 50 times more pesticides are used around the world than were used just 50 years ago. Third is agricultural machinery. Plowing, fertilizing, picking, and transporting are all done by the machine. So sa paglipas ng panahon, yung pagsasaka is nag-umpisa na ding maging dependent sa mga makina. At dahil ginagamitan na ng mga advanced technology, mas nagagawa na ng mga magsasaka na makapagtanim pa ng mas marami at nagagawa na rin nilang mas mapabilis pa yung pagpoproduce ng mga aanihing produkto. Last, increasing access to water. Irrigation also played a large role in Green Revolution, and this forever changed the areas where various crops can be grown. Noon kasi, di ba, may limitado lamang yung pagtatanim ng mga lugar kung saan lang madalas yung pag-ulan, doon lang din may mga agriculture. Pero dahil sa irrigation, nagagawa ng makapag-ipon pa ng mga tubig at na didistribute yun sa mga lugar kung saan may mas malawak na lupain para sa produksyon. And to summarize my report po, the Green Revolution has greatly enhanced agriculture output. Noon, ang isang magsasaka kaya lamang magpakain ng 2.5 na tao, pero ngayon sa kasalukuyan, ang isang magsasaka ay kaya na magpakain ng mahigit pa sa 100 katao. That's why the Green Revolution is credited with feeding 1 billion people who would otherwise go hungry, and therefore it prevented Malthusian catastrophe to happen. Now we will proceed to the next reporter, Ms. Paras.
Women and reproductive rights. So first off, I am going to discuss what is the women's reproductive system. Women's reproductive system is one of the most vital parts of the human reproductive process. It is a delicate and complex system in the body. Although a man is needed to reproduce, yung babae pa din po yung nag-incubate ng developing fetus at siya yung nagde-deliver ng baby in the world. So it is important to take steps to protect it from infections and injury and prevent problems including some long-term health problems. So later on, I will discuss some common health reproductive concerns for women. So taking care of yourself and making healthy choices can help protect you and your loved ones. Protecting your reproductive system also means having control of your health if and when you become pregnant. So here are some common reproductive health concerns for women. So first, uterine fibroids. So these are tumors that grow in a woman's womb. These growths are typically not cancers and benign. So benign, not harmful. So uterine fibroids, some symptoms, heavy or painful period, urinating often, painful sex, and lower back pain. So some women po wala po silang symptoms, so it is important to consult your doctor. Ayan. Second po ay gynecologic cancer. So it is any cancer that starts in a woman's reproductive organs. So it begins in different places within a woman's pelvis. Cancer is always named for the part of the body where it starts, like cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, vaginal cancer, and vulval cancer. Next po ay HIV or AIDS. It is the virus that attacks the body's immune system. So, yung virus na to, iaatake niya yung mga cells na hanggang sa hindi na kayang labanan ng katawan natin yung infection. So, wala pa pong cure yung HIV. So, if you have an HIV,
you have it for life. Yes. So PCOS naman po, it is a condition in which woman's hormones are out of balance. So it's a condition which the ovaries produce an abnormal amount of androgens, which is the male hormones that are usually present in women in small amounts. So symptoms nito ay infertility, obesity, and acne. Next po ay sexually transmitted diseases or STDs. Infection that you can get from having sex with someone who has the infection. So, just like HIV po, wala rin pong cure yung STD. But antiviral medication can help control symptoms pero hindi niya po may eliminate yung disease. Next po ay sexual violence. It is a sexual activity where consent is not obtained or freely given. So this refers to crimes like sexual assaults, rape, sexual abuse. So the ultimate goal is to stop sexual violence before it begins. So here are some tips for a healthy female reproductive system. First is to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So proper diet, healthy body, weight, exercise, and sufficient sleep are habits that help your reproductive system. So, being overweight po or underweight can cause complications during pregnancy. Also, enduring constant stress may weaken our body's immune system and predispose you to infections. So, stress po can alter our normal menstruation cycle and cause hormonal imbalances. Second, quit smoking. Yan, kung naninigarilyo po tayo, mag-quit na po tayo. Because a single stick of cigarette contains a lot of toxins, composition that lead to addiction and cancer and coronary issues. So smoking can compromise the ovaries and uterus and the other areas of female reproductive system. Third po ay go for regular screenings. Ensure early detection of any condition and ensure a better chance of survival. So, with aging, getting a trusted gynecologist may be a great idea. So, it is advisable to go for routine screenings, including pap smears and STD and infection tests. Fourth po ay practice safe sex. So, it is important for preventing diseases. So, before engaging in sexual intercourse, of course, you need to get your partner screened to be sure they are safe. You can use a condom to prevent disease transmission like HIV o mga STD. Ayan. So, last one is increased consumption of magnesium and calcium. So, it is essential that these two vital minerals are combined because magnesium provides the mechanism that enables the control or moderation of calcium levels in the cells. So, yung sources ng calcium and magnesium includes seaweeds, sesame seeds, avocado, nuts, leafy green vegetables. So, you can also get reasonable amounts of magnesium through your skin pores by using magnesium bath salts when you bath. So, final note po, sabi nga nila, prevention is better than cure. So, following the tips provided and practicing good hygiene will ensure you that you get a healthy reproductive system and save yourself from expensive medical procedures.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Paras. For next, we will tackle about reproductive health law. Most countries implement reproductive health law because they are worried about the health of a mother, because there are other complications because of reproductive health. Many countries succeed to control total fertility rate like Ghana and Bolivia. They are the ones who make a reproductive health law and support abortion. There are some countries that doesn't support reproductive right because they think that it is front for abortion. These are the countries like Poland, Croatia, Russia, Philippines, and many more countries. But they have their own reproductive health law which is more restrictive. And they don't support reproductive right because For them, abortion is bad according to their religion, especially in the Philippines because Philippines is a Christian country and it doesn't support abortion. So next is 13 sexual reproductive health rights in the Philippines, and it is according to our Department of Health. So first is the right of life. This means, among other things, that no woman's life should be put at risk by reason of pregnancy, gender, or lack of access to health information and services. This also includes the right to be safe and satisfying sex life. Next is the right to liberty and security of the person. This recognizes that no woman should be subjected to forced pregnancy, forced sterilization, and forced abortion. Third one is the right to equality and to be free from all forms of discrimination. This includes, among other things, freedom from discrimination because of one's sexuality and reproductive life choices. And number four, the right to privacy. This means that all sexual and reproductive healthcare services should be confidential in terms of physical setup information given or shared by the clients and access to the records and reports. Number five is the right to freedom of thought. This means that all sexual and reproductive healthcare services should be confidential in terms of physical setup, information given or shared by the clients, and access to records or reports. Number six is the right to information and education. This includes the access to full information on the benefits, risks, and effectiveness of all methods of fertility regulations in order that all decisions taken are made on the basis of full, free, and informed consent. Number seven is the right to choose whether or not to marry and found a plan a family. This includes the right of person to protection against the requirement to marry without his or her consent. It also includes the right of individuals to choose to remain single without discrimination or coercion. And number eight is the right to decide whether or when to have a children. This includes the right of person to decide freely and responsibly the number and spacing of their children, and to have access to related information and education. The right to healthcare and health protection. Number nine is the right to healthcare and health protection. This includes the right of clients to the highest possible quality of healthcare and the right to be free from harmful traditional health practices. Number 10, the right to be benefit of scientific progress. This includes the right of sexual and reproductive health service of clients to avail of the new reproductive health technologies that are safe, effective, and acceptable. Number 11, the right of freedom of assembly and political participation. This includes the right of all persons to seek to influence communities and governments to prioritize sexual and reproductive health and rights. Number 12 is the right to be free from torture and ill treatment. This includes the right of all women, men, and young people to protection from violence, sexual exploitation, and abuse. And the last one is the right to development. This includes the right of all individuals to access development opportunities and benefits, especially in decision making that affect his or her life. This concludes my report. Next is the feminist perspective by Ms. Kaylee.
Hello, I'm Adeline Kiiling and I'm going to discuss the feminist perspective. So what is feminist perspective? So feminists approach that issue of reproductive right from the other angle. They are foremost against any form of population control because they are compulsory by the nature. resorting to carrot and stick approach. So, sila yung mga pangunahin laban sa anumang anyo ng pagkontrol sa populasyon dahil likas silang sa pilitan na gumagamit ng carrot and stick approach. Ang mekanismo ng pagpaparusa ay magkakasamang umiiral kasama ng benepisyo does not actually empowered woman. So, feminist perspective highlights the social issues that are often overlooked or misidentified by already present social theories. So, it analyzes woman experience of gender subordination and identifies the underlying causes of gender oppression. So, we have achievement by gender. So, historically, girls underachieve in school. We have lower expectation, gendered subject choices, and career path. So, looking at the some historical trends in education, prior to the 1980s, girls' achievement was seen an issue in the education system. So not much was expected of girls in many ways of achievement, with general assumption that many girls would go on leave the school and go into the traditional expressive role. We have since 1980s, girls have started to achieve higher than boys. So rise feminism, and we have career aspiration. So since the mid late 80s, so girls have surpassed guys in the terms of achievement. So much that education opportunities for guys, achievement is considered as a problem. So the impact of Second World War on the 21st century, so waves of feminism are passing from one generation to the next. So the next has a better job. So Sharp have once again highlighted aspiration. So following up in the 1990s, there was an upsurge in the number of women enrolled in school. So in addition to well-educated female role models, all of the society implies how things have changed over the time. So there has occurred over the last 40 years, mostly as a result of shifting attitude, as a result of feminism activism. So next is experience of different gender in education. So we have sexual harassment of girls in school, male gaze, and higher expectation on girls for behavior, and rigid control on girls' behavior. So girls' perspective on schooling system and how frequently girls' issues are brought up, either ignored or seen as by the product of concern affecting guys. So such as sexuality, harassment in school is frequently addressed, not given the respect they deserve, but be treated with respect they deserve. So boys' attitude will be boys' attitude. So some locations have a high incidence of teacher, so hesitant to take the full challenge, male to male sexist behavior. Furthermore, there are more students. Girls are held to the high standard in terms of their behavior. So mataas yung standard nila pagdating nila sa mga babae. So as opposed to boys, because boys are frequently socialized, this has gotten me into the habit of being loud, and in certain cases, the behavior is not addressed. So males but would face opposition from females. So if they were shown by a woman, it would be more appealing. It was shown as appealing. So student, because it contradicts their beliefs. So ang mga feminists ay magtataguyod din para sa isang papel ng kasarian. So, na ang babae ay hinahawakan sa mga matataas na pamantayan. Ang malalaki ay may higit na kontrol sa sitwasyon kaysa sa mga babae, at sila ay madalas nangunguna. Ang mga babae ay madalas na sinisisi sa mga aksyon ng mga lalaki. Kung ang kanilang itsura ay nagdudulot ng pangamba, sila ay pauuwiin. So ang mga lalaki na naghahatid ng mensahe sa mga babae, so ang kanilang pag-aaral ay hindi kasing halaga ng dati. So ang feminismo ay ang positibong epekto sa kanilang mga kapanahong lalaki. So in the next po, ang next po i-discuss is yung kaduktong po ng feminist perspective. Next reporter po.
Next is gender socialization. Feminism also investigates the impact of gender socialization on girls' educational achievement. Feminists argue that gender socialization appears to place girls at disadvantage in society because they are socialized to be impassive, obedient, and subservient, allowing teachers and parents to exert greater control over them. Girls are often given less freedom than boys, with many with controls over time, space, and bodies more visible than those experienced by boys. However, many critics argue that gender socialization gives girls an advantage in the educational system, particularly because they are socialized into conformity and obedience, making them appear as the ideal students. Boy lacks of control can also be seen as a limiting factor in education, with boys being presented as having a boisterous nature, leading to teachers having lower expectations for academic success of boys. Next is formation of gender identities. Many feminists are concerned about the role of the schools plays in the formation of gender identities, and many would criticize education for forcing traditional gender stereotypes on girls while they are in school. This is accomplished by enforcing uniform regulations that require girls to conform to feminine or passive gender identities, with their appearance being routinely controlled and told what they can and cannot wear. Girls face more severe sanctions for their hair color, makeup, and jewelry, as well as for wearing clothes that may be distracting to boys, implying that males are unable to control their action and thus female must control. There are double there are also double standards of sexual behavior in school as well as wider society, with boys allotted for their sexual exploit as it reaffirms his hegemonic position. Girls are prevented from discussing or condemning low sexual habits, which reflects why women are subjected to social constraint and is a component of their gender identity. Sport is another method in which identity is established, with gender inequalities in sports choices and perspective of girls who participate in sport as well as a feminist focal area. Next is the gender subject images. Gender images were also explored by feminists and educators, presenting the traditional male territory of mathematics and science and the female territory of art and humanities as fixed. But a lasting contribution of feminism, one was to challenge the typical image charts of female students' initiatives, science and engineering women like Science and Technology Advisor GIST bills. As evidenced by enrollment in undergraduate programs, we notice a growing interest in core subjects among girls. However, this has not been reproduced in men, and the subject in the women territories retain the level of girl subjects and also the College of Liberal Arts and Humanities subjects that are considered low value. Let's move on to our next reporter, Miss Balandres.
So now I'm gonna report about the population growth. So global demography provides an overview of demographic change in the world today, including the differences and similarities over time, geographical region, and stages of development. So pag sinabing demographic, it is the or it relates to the structure of population. Simply means na ang demographic ay tumutukoy sa population. So, 'pag pinagsama natin or kinombine natin yung two words na global demographic, it means the overpopulation around the world. So, what population growth is? It is an increase in the number of people in a population. So, based sa graph, makikita dito na around 15.6 billion ang ilalaki pa ng population for the next 100 years. What causes the population growth? So, lumalaki ang isang population or mas lumalaki dahil ito ay dahilan ng paglaki ng or pag-increase ng birth or pag-decrease ng death rate. So, demographic transition, it explains why rapid population growth happens. It all about the timing at which fertility rate and mortality rate changes. So, makikita dito yung 5 stages ng transition or sequence. Ito ay yung sequence of the 5 stages. So, stage 1, high mortality rate and high birth rates. So, it means na mas mataas yung death rate, yung birth rate, saka pag tumaas din yung death rate, so magiging stable yung population growth. Hindi siya yung mag-o-over or mas bababa. Sa next stage, mortality rate falls but birth rate still high. Mas mababang death rates pero pero mataas pa rin yung birth rates. It means na mas mag-i-increase pa yung population. Tapos sa stage 2 naman, mortality rate, mababang mortality rate pero ang birth rate ay bababa. So it means na mag-i-increase yung pag-slow down ng population growth. Tapos sa stage 4 naman, death rate, pagbaba ng death rate and pagbaba rin ng birth rate, it means na nagfo-fall na yung paglaki ng isang population. Sa stage 5 naman, pagbaba ng death rate and some evidences of rising fertility or may pagbabago sa birth rate na pwedeng tumaas, pwede ring bumaba. So, magkakaroon siya ng little changes sa paglaki ng population. Pinapakita lang dito na timing yung basihan kung kailan lalaki or kailan mas dadami yung population ng isang bansa. Next po. So, ito yung mga various causes ng overpopulation. Unang-una yung agricultural advancement. Second is child labor o yung pagtaas nga ng pagtaas ng mga nanganganak. Sa third is the immigration or yung pagpasok ng mga tao sa isang bansa. Fourth is lack of family planning ay nakakaapekto rin ng or nagko-cause din siya ng overpopulation kasi mataas yung chances na mas dadami pa yung tao. Next po. So, ito yung top 5 most populous country. Una-una na dito yung China na 1.4 billion yung katao na naninirahan doon or yung population ng bansang iyon. Second is India na ang population is around 1.39 million. Third is the United States na nagre-range siya 333 million. Fourth is the Indonesia na nagre-range sa 267 million population. And fifth populous country is the Brazil na nagre-range sa 214 million. Sabi dito na the world population increased from 1 billion noong 1800s up to 7.9 billion now. So, makikita dito na malaki yung tinaas ng population or yung population growth. Sabi rin dito na growth rate declined from 2.2% per year for the last 50 years. So, ngayon ay nagre-range siya sa 1% per year. Thank you po.
Hi, my name is Kiana, and my report for today is what is food security. So this is the continuous of the report of Bilandras. So it is about the food security. So it means it is all basic. So it is with quotation basic. It is really needed for each of us because ito yung nagiging needs ng tao sa isang food security kasi unang-una ang food security is demand ng bawat isa. Hindi lang sa tao which is pati sa community. Second, so Under din ng food security, yung production or yung paggawa ng mga crops and livestock. Hindi naman porket na meron tayong food security is gawa lang ng gawa or supply ng supply, which is hindi dapat yon kasi merong basic criteria ang food security kung sapat ba ang food supplies like crops and livestock na sinusupply nila sa community, and dapat tamang-tama lang ang ginagawa or sinusupply sa market para hindi siya makaapekto sa ibang supplies din. And then third, kaya meron din tayong food security, unang-una kasi gusto or sa Philippines, kasi kabilang tayo sa isang, or kabilang yung bansa natin na kabilang sa maraming obese. So that's why meron tayong food security para mabalance yung healthy lifestyle ng bawat isa. And then, for example of food security, it is about soup kitchens, food banks. Yung food banks na yan is about sa mga nakaimbak sa mga community. And then, school lunch program, yan yung mga free foods sa mga underweight na students. Next slide, please. And of course, we do have component in food security. So first, availability. So from the word availability, so it is existence or of food within community. So ano ba yung availability? Ano yung available na meron sa isang community? And then second is access. Hindi may needs na kailangang maganapan ng food security para mapunan ang food nutrients na kinakailangan ng isang tao sa isang community. Third, utilization. Like what I've said sa early page, kailangan talaga natin ng food supply to have energy and to have a daily activities or meron tayong lakas na magkakaroon tayo ng lakas para sa daily activities na mayroon tayo, which is magkakaroon lang tayo pag mayroon tayong sapat na food nutrients sa katawan. And fourth, stability. So, kailangan talaga stable, hindi lang ngayon stable ng food, dapat stable talaga siya every time para magkaroon tayo ng good product and good supplies, and at the same time, good nutrients sa isang community using the food security na mayroon tayo. Next, please. Why is it important? So first, it is impact our health, which is about for nutrients, especially sa mga children na underweight. So sabihin na lang natin, pag uumpisahan natin siya ngayon, mapagpapatuloy natin to at the end of the day. So lalo na ngayon na yung mga bata ngayon is usually hindi talaga kumakain ng mga gulay, na mga healthy foods. So kung uumpisahan natin sila using the food security, there is a big chances na makakasanayan nila. Second, it also depends on agriculture. So unang-una, depende yan kung maganda or like for example, dito sa Silang, we do have a lot of farmers which is sa mga prutas like like mga pineapple, mga craft. So third, tied to climate change. So without farmer, we can sustain the food security that we needed because unang-una sa lahat, ang farmer ang gumagawa ng foods natin. Not literally sila yung gumagawa kasi kumukuha din sila ng mga chemicals for yung pangpatanggal ng mga peste, ganun-ganun. Pero sila yung gumagawa sa bukid. Fourth, empowers women, families, and future generation. So yes, it is true, which is if every time na yung parents natin or mother natin ang nagtatrabaho, not literally 90%, pero almost 100% ng kita or salary ng family ng nanay natin napupunta talaga sa needs natin, which is kaya kailangan din talaga natin na magkaroon as a girl empowerment woman, please. And that would be all. Diyan na po magtatapos yung report namin for today. And thank you so much for listening to our report and have a good day. Thank you.